All right, let's talk about science. Science has brought us a great many innovations and a great many good things in the world, but there is an interesting sphere of science which seems to be the sphere of pointless and useless studies that only exist, I assume, to one, reaffirm the immensely obvious, and two, gain consistent funding for the people who are conducting these studies and surveys again and again and again, so that they can, make a living and tell their friends that they have a career as a scientist. Does this equate with your experience somewhat, Josh?
Well, allow me to play devil's advocate a little bit here, because
all right.
In psychology there were lots of things that we were studying that were sort of common knowledge, but we had to not only study them to be able to quantify them and make sure that the sort of colloquial knowledge, the anecdote, is true, but also that some of the data you get is useful in having a deeper understanding than you would have just by, being a person in the world. And so, you can identify patterns with those numbers, and there's basically more utility in carrying out a study, and it's also a jumping off point for more depth. And you've got to have this initial study, which then lots of others branch out of. And so sometimes a study may appear pointless that isn't, although I don't doubt there will be some ridiculous ones. And what I tend to find, the most pointless studies are the ones that some postgraduate has cooked up to give them a nice leapfrog into having some degree of public-facing acknowledgement. So they've used lots of buzzwords and they've made it very trendy. They tried to make sexy science, as us scientists call it, which is frowned upon. Scientists have to be unsexy, which, I'm keeping it real.
Yep, you were really holding up your end of the bargain there.
A broader point, though, that's definitely true, and it's not just in science, because I've worked in sort of, like private enterprises before. Anywhere where there's a budget, there's the tendency to always spend all of the budget and be asking for more. Always, even if you don't need to, even if you have to contrive that situation.
If you save costs, then you might get the budget cut next year.
Exactly. And so that will go. That's just the way the world sort of works, really.
Yeah.
Or capitalist world works.
I've heard stories of militaries just firing off rounds because it uses up their budget.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense from a very utilitarian point of view if you just wanted to get the money. Either way, though, so I do agree that gathering statistics and such and quantifying and codifying a lot of this stuff can be very, very useful. And when it reaffirms things that we already know, it can kind of wrap around to being retroactively pointless, even though even though it's actually more guarantee of the things that we were already certain of, right? Mm-hmm. But some of the ones that I'm going through are not necessarily bad because of that. It's more that they are operating off of faulty premises that they do not want to acknowledge because of political correctness, which is mainly going to be affecting the first study that I will be looking at. But speaking of science and things that have improved the world, another thing that has improved the world and can improve your life immensely is Islander magazine, because we have Islander issue 4 out right now for the low, low price of £14.99. Thank you. We have office model Superstar Bow right here, right now, showing you how it will look in your hands. It won't look as good in your hands.
And according to the Rumble Ranters, Daddy Dade, as they called him.
God. But it will look somewhat similar to how it looks in Beau's hands, although without the immense sex appeal. There you go. So buy that. Also, I think we've got more stuff on the website for you to buy for merch if you are interested. So please do that. So this first study that I wanted to look at was one of those ones that you look at the results that have been generated so far and you go, this is blindingly obvious. Clearly, because it turns out that if you just hand cash to poor families, it doesn't make the children any smarter.
Mm-hmm.
Just injecting a direct flow of money into the brain of an idiot child does not actually increase their IQ points.
Yeah, it just increases their parents' drug habit.
Injections of liquid cash directly to the brain.
You just pulp it down and then you inject it straight into their brain. It turns out does not improve their chances at doing well at school. Now, this is rigorous new research that was done under the name Baby's First Years, and they actually did control for the spending habits of the parents themselves. So they were
Okay.
making sure that the extra money, they split them into a few groups. One was being given $333 a month, and another was being given $20 a month, and they were expecting that of these two groups, the ones that were being given $333, the higher amount, would perform better in terms of child development, that having access to greater funds would allow the children to, say, do better with well-being, with language skills, with cognitive function, etc., etc.
Could I guess why this has happened? Because, of course, the same reason that their families are poor are the same reason that their children might not be doing too well at school, and that these two things correlate pretty strongly, I imagine, because the same skills that make you successful in life tend to make you successful as a parent.
Well, yes, they completely ignore any question of hereditary traits, which is the glaring flaw of this study, which makes the results, one, blindingly obvious if you had taken hereditary traits into account in the first place.
And it also compounds as well, in that your hereditary traits will also shape the environment. So if you've got a parent who's very stupid, well, their environment also is going to reinforce their own stupidity, and therefore they're going to be like doubly stupid raising the child.
Yes, and so the results from this, again, they were expecting that the people being given more money, their children would do better. Instead, they found that they were no more likely to develop language skills, avoid behavioral problems or developmental delays, demonstrate executive function, or exhibit brain activity associated with cognitive development. Because what they did, they went all the way with this. They used let me see here. Children in both groups showed similar patterns of brain activity on the study's main neurological yardstick, an index of high-frequency brain activity as measured by and you'll have to forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, electroencephalogram, which measured high-frequency brain activity.
Wait, where are you reading that from? That was so wrong, I can't tell what you're trying to say.
I am very sorry.
I didn't mean it in a bad
I've
way.
highlighted it in the document. If you scroll down and find my highlight, the high frequency brain activity is often associated.
Electrocephalogram.
Oh, cephalogram. Ah, yes, I missed the C. Thank you very much. So they were actually measuring the children's higher function brain activities as well as they were going through this, and again found that more money no equal more brain. More money no equal more brain.
Me confused.
More money?
Yes, sure.
No help.
Oh.
No help at all.
It's only like $300 or whatever. That's not that much, really. It's not that much money. And what you're going to buy a few more books, maybe? I mean, so like I grew up pretty dirt poor, right? And went to a comprehensive school where everyone was like working class, basically. And the reason why I did all right, I suppose, you could be the judge of that out there. The reason why I did all right, went to a decent uni and all that sort of thing, is simply because my household was sort of a reading household.
Same here.
It's pretty much. Yep. It was pretty much that. Right, I was brought up semi-strict, so I was not really naughty, particularly. I was quite a well-behaved child and read a bit. That's it. That was the difference between me, who went on to do A-levels and go to uni and do a postgrad, and someone that just left school at 16 with hardly any GCSEs. We read a bit in my household. That's it. It was nothing to do with money. The books were dirt cheap, like 99p Penguin paperback, second-hand or whatever, from Oxfam or something. It doesn't cost all that much money to buy a few books.
Or there's a thing called a library where you get the books for free.
Yeah.
And again, the environment does play a role in it, but the question becomes, was the environment the entirety of the role played, or was the hereditary traits, the behaviour of your parents that they passed down onto you and their own behaviour themselves, what created that environment and gave you the traits that made you more likely to be inquisitive and curious and pick up a book? I would argue it's those traits that came first that create the environment that you grew up in.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And it wasn't about money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We didn't have any money.
But the fact
we had a few hundred books, but no, it wasn't about money.
But the fact that this completely ignores any question of these traits which are passed down generationally, it leads to the people who then see these results and say, as Greg J. Duncan did, an economist at the University of California, I was very surprised. We were all very surprised that the money didn't make a difference. And the thing was, they tried to hide this, because it says here, if I scroll down, that they initially, lots of other studies had been done on very short scale, on short time scales, that seem to suggest that if you have more money, the families get better results. But again, it says, long been clear, children from affluent families exhibit stronger cognitive developments and fewer behavioural problems. But of course, they get the causative elements there completely mixed up. It's because they're already likely to behave well and be more intelligent that they become more successful and earn more money. So they're completely mixing that up and just think, well, more money, more brain. More money, more brain. And this study here is just one shot, many of them. And so it says...
You need to look at Africa. Look at all the aid that they've received in Africa. Or look at Haiti. The GDP of their country is equivalent to the amount of foreign aid they've received. It's not improved Haiti. It's still, scarcely habitable as a land.
Yeah, and shockingly enough, they recruited the 1,000 poor mothers with newborns from New York, New Orleans, Greater Omaha, Minneapolis, St. Paul. More than 80% were black or Latino, and most were unmarried. So, what a surprise that we got these results. So they were saying here, though an earlier paper showed promising activity related to neurological measure in the high cash influence, the trend did not endure. The new study detected some evidence of other differences, but the significance was unclear. And while researchers published the earlier, more promising results and publicized them, the follow-up study was released very quietly and received little attention. So they were trying to hide it. They're trying to hide it. And in the exact way that you would expect, many people have reacted to this particular study saying, clearly, I figured out the problem. They need more money. $333, that's nowhere near enough.
A month as well. That's... Was it a month? I can't remember the
That's
actual.
what he said. Yeah.
But if that is the case, that's actually quite a lot to spend on your child's education, isn't it? That's pretty considerable.
It can improve the quality of the food that you're buying.
That should be the kids' food for the whole month, surely.
Yeah. So
if not more.
If you go to a car boot sale or second-hand bookstore, you can buy quite a few books for that every month. Quite a few. You just have to force the kids to sit down and actually read them.
That's going to be difficult in some of these family situations with only one parent, but, and...
or they never learnt to read properly at all.
Probably. And Arlok Sherman of the Centre on Budget and Policy Priorities, who supports income guarantees, of course, says that I don't think these results undermine the conclusion from a large volume of studies that income is important for a children's health, education, and development. And that's such a broad way of describing it. Obviously, having money is important for their health and education and parts of their development. If you can't feed them, they'll starve. But that doesn't necessarily, again, that doesn't mean that you can add on an extra 15 IQ points by giving them stacks of cash.
It's a very subtle rhetorical thing.
Or else Lil Wayne would have really skyrocketed from album to album. He'd have been more intelligent each go around. Same with Dr. Dre. Jay-Z, he should be a scientific genius by now.
So what he's saying isn't actually untrue, but in the context of what he's saying is misleading. So he's saying that money is important. Well, no one's disputing that. A certain threshold, sure, but I think everyone in the United States has a quality of living whereby poverty isn't really a proper concern unless it's self-inflicted from behaviour. And so the financial aspect isn't really a problem, even though what he's saying factually is correct. You look at somewhere else where there is a problem with, actually getting what you need, then that's perfectly true. But it makes people think that actually you do need money to make children successful, which isn't true.
It's like they have this strange mystical idea that if you have a stupid child and simply put a stack of cash near them, the magical transitive properties of the cash will make them more intelligent.
Almost certainly not.
No, that's not how it works. And
Do you think force feeding them cash might help?
well, we've not tried that study yet, Bo. So if you'd like to try and get funding for it and willing participants,
If we could do some sort of study to see if making children ingest gold coins makes them cleverer. You know, money, more cleverer. So
it's a promising realm of scientific research. I think someone might be willing to fund that for you. Josh, you've got the connections. Get on it. Yeah,
Get some electrodes involved.
And who else? Jane Wildvogel, a professor at Columbia University who wrote a book on child benefits, said that it was just not enough money. It was just not enough money, and the Democrats want to offer about 2 or 3 times more than that.
It's
So
also
if we just gave them an extra grand a month, then the baby's brains will grow by 3 times as well. Kind of like the Grinch in his heart.
It's worth mentioning as well that even if it was too small an amount of money, they still would have observed an effect, right? It's scalable if it's just the amount of money, and so they're not even looking at the right explanation for the outcome there.
it's just not money. It's about being diligent, being raised right, being inquisitive. You could be dirt poor and still be inquisitive. It's funny. It reminds me of a bit in an old South Park episode where Magic Johnson, who's lived with HIV/AIDS for many, many years, he was just injecting liquid cash. Like, how has Magic Johnson stayed alive?
He didn't trust the bank, so he just kept all of his cash in his bedroom, like stuffed into his mattress. So him being surrounded by cash and sleeping on it every night stopped him from having AIDS. And so Cartman, if I remember, he goes around Africa going, "Don't worry, guys, just have money and you'll be fine." And all the Africans are staring at him. Yeah. It doesn't work that way, sadly.
It's a classic leftist thing, though, isn't it? To justify why we need to
be socialists.
Yeah. We need to steal money from anyone. Certainly, all rich people, they need to be eaten, if anything. But even middle-class people or kulaks, even they are an issue, and their money needs to be redistributed to poor people. All of that is to justify that, isn't it?
Yes. I mean,
it just doesn't make any sense. It's not how real world and real people work.
And look at the people who were coming out of the other end of the results of this, still saying, well, it's just more money. So they'll take these results and say, well, we didn't go far enough. It's the same with any sort of like government budgetary overreach. Well, if we have all of these social programs and affirmative action and they don't work at first, do it more. And that will somehow lead to greater conclusions. And so that's an example. We're almost running out of time now, so I'll speed up. That's an example of science made pointless by the fact that it didn't consider the actual cause or one of the actual most important factors that should be considered in what it is testing, which is, if you're talking about cognitive development, what are the hereditary traits, what are the behaviors of the family from generation to generation, what would that suggest for the development of the child? The most obvious thing in the world. They ignored it because to do so would be politically incorrect and not in favour of the results that they were looking for already. Here's some other fun ones. This one's actually quite useful here, which is... avoiding ultra-processed foods might double weight loss.
Shock.
I know, right?
Breaking.
What this is suggesting...
Breaking news.
If the food that you eat is not full of additives, then it's healthier for you. But the interesting thing is this one as well was that even when the people involved in the studies, who are all American, so their diet was presumably absolute trash before they started this study anyway. Turns out even if you are eating ultra-processed foods that just aren't complete shit, that actually have all the nutrients that you need in them, you will probably still lose weight if you're trying to. So just don't stuff your mouth with ultra-processed garbage, and you might lose some weight. Thank you very much for that one, science.
Wow.
I know. Here's another one. This might shock you. You might be shocked out of your chair right now. A healthy lifestyle can help your brain.
No way.
And keep it healthier as you get older.
But there's already research just like learning the piano or an instrument or a second language helps you with dementia.
Yep.
They're even able to quantify it. Like, I think learning a second language reduces your chance of dementia. This is off the top of my head, so I could be misremembering, by around 6%. I might be conflating that with a different study.
And that sounds pretty reasonable. So what you're suggesting is that if you exercise, you eat well, and you keep your mind active, it reduces your chance of dementia.
Yes.
And weight gain.
And that.
My God. My God. And I'm sure there weren't already dozens of scientific papers confirming this already. We really needed this one to be funded, and this, so that we could really just put the cherry on top of that cake, that big, delicious cake. Here's another one. Walking is healthy for you.
No, I don't believe that.
Moving.
I don't.
Moving is
Surely
helpful.
not.
We work in an office, Bo. I
Surely
understand
not.
we don't do much moving. But it turns out that moving more is more good for you, but you don't have to move quite as much as we once thought for it to still be good for you. They used to recommend 10,000 steps. Now it turns out 7,000 steps can be just as good.
So move more good.
Thank you, science.
But not all of those 7,000 steps will be equal. I mean, walking uphill is more per step.
No. More move, more good.
Okay.
Don't complicate it with any of that subjective nonsense. But, that's all mostly harmless, right? There are studies that will go out of their way to suggest things that I would be a little bit skeptical of as well, like this one. The new contraceptive pill, according to a study, the contraceptive pill for men, perfectly safe. Perfectly safe. It's perfectly fine. It doesn't reduce your testosterone, your sex drive, or hormonal imbalance. All it does is reduce stop your body from producing, or limit your body from producing a particular protein which helps with sperm production. All it does is lower your sperm count so that it's less likely for women to get pregnant when they have sex with you unprotected. And I'm sure that this will have no long-term negative side effects. Just the unnatural reduction of your body's ability to produce sperm.
The second you stop taking it, you go exactly back to where you were before.
I guess so, because we know...
I've never heard of a contraceptive pill for men.
This is something that feminists have been really angry about for a long time.
The men don't have one.
Yeah, the idea that they have to... But the thing is, I've seen what the contraceptive pill does to women. Do I want to do that to myself? Would I take something? No, that's just my subjective opinion. Josh, you're the office contrarian. So would you take this?
No, I agree with you.
They're...
I'm such a contrarian, I've gone full circle. No, I'm very suspicious of this, and also one initial trial, sure. And I mean, medical trials tend to be a lot stricter than a lot of others, and generally speaking, it's easier to take the research at face value. But of course, we know from recent events that that's not always true, is it? And so with technologies that have a political element, particularly medical ones...
And this is a very politically driven push for a male contraceptive pill in the first place.
I would have my suspicions. I think looking at the evidence and making up your own mind is the best you can do.
I wouldn't advise anyone to mess with their hormones at all unless you had to. If you've got a problem, a medical problem, and doctors say it's in your best interest to do this because you've got an issue, okay, that's something different. But if you're essentially a healthy person, don't mess with your hormone balance. If it's in balance, count your lucky stars, and long may it last. Don't mess about with it. That's my advice.
Very true, yeah.
And that's
why would you?
And that's a scientifically guaranteed statement right there.
Don't mess about with it.
Yeah, just don't mess about with it. just don't mess about with it. That is probably more useful than science like this, and much science which is just confirming the obvious. But always be careful of the political reasons for why particular science is undertaken, and be careful when stuff like this, the first study that we looked at, is confirming the obvious. Examine why that is and what factors that the people undertaking the research have left out, which might be the actual causal factors that they're just ignoring. And if you take the male contraceptive pill, you're a cuck. All right, we've got some.
That's why I would never do roids.
We can overrun as much as we need.
Yeah, we can overrun as much as
That's
we
why
need. Go on.
I would never ever do any sort of roids because, well, for a start, at some point you've got to stop taking them, right? So it's only ever going to be temporary.
Well,
but
Bo, I didn't think you needed them.
I don't.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
No, I don't. No, I wouldn't because, again, you're playing with fire. I would never do it. If you get old and you want some sort of T replacement thing, I think Joe Rogan and other people talk about. Okay, that's something different. And women, when they get older, like hormone replacement therapy and stuff like that. Okay, that's something different. That's reasonable. But you're a young, healthy person, and you just want to be super jacked, so you start taking. Like stuff like that. It's like,
All I needed to hear was that it shrinks your testicles. I was like, yep, never doing that.
Well, because
no chance.
Yeah.
I mean, the natural the natural testosterone in healthy levels, and they do shift this about sometimes, and I think it's kind of sneaky. They used to say between 300 nanograms per deciliter in your blood and 1,000. Recently, I've noticed that they've started to shift that to between 200 and 800, which seems a little bit suspicious to me. But if your range, if for whatever reason you get it tested and say you've got 600 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone, yeah, it's not the highest it can be, but that's healthy levels, perfectly reasonable. If you take testosterone as a steroid, which it always raises your testosterone levels, it's been known to go up to like 10,000 nanograms per deciliter. Completely unhealthy level, which does cause cognitive problems. It literally makes you dumber, and it also causes memory issues, emotional issues. And then when you come off it, because your body has got used to receiving it from outside the body, stops producing it naturally. So you come off of testosterone,
that's
you come off of
scary
it,
bit.
and all of a sudden, there have been stories. I've seen it happen to these YouTubers where they come off of the steroids and their levels of T levels literally drop to zero.
Yeah, their body has stopped making it.
It stopped making it and doesn't know how to produce it anymore, so they have to go on to TRT. So you basically become a permanent patient for these clinics. And can you imagine going from being so over-masculinized that the slightest thing can make you furious, like you can hear a bird song and you'll want to fight the bird, to all of a sudden having literally no testosterone in your body at all? The mood swing and depression that would onset you, it's just not worth it.
I saw a documentary once. It was about this. It's called the man whose arms exploded. He was this massive roid head, ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
It
wasn't Rich Piana, was it?
No, but it was that sort of level of jacked. It was ridiculous. And he ended up going to prison for dealing steroids. And in prison, he had to sort of go cold turkey. And apparently his balls shrunk to the size of raisins, and he had the T level of an 8-year-old girl, i.e. none, effectively almost none. And so that's what happened to him. Because he abused test.
Yeah, I mean,
so don't do that.
Same thing happened to. You might know, there was that metalcore band whose roided out singer tried to hire a hitman to murder his wife.
Oh yeah.
And it turned out the guy he was put in touch with was an undercover cop. So he just got arrested and went to prison. So he was on loads of roids and had massive roid rage. It's one of the reasons that, he's having a messy breakup with his wife anyway. He wanted the kids. So he just thought, I'm so roided out and angry, I'm going to get someone to kill her. He gets arrested, convicted, goes to prison for it, doesn't have access to any steroids, and then like a year later, all you see in the news of metal reporting is like Tim Lambesis was the name of the singer. I forget the name of the band that he was in, but it's like Tim has started to grow man tits because his body is not producing testosterone anymore, and his body is overcompensated with estrogen, which meant it gave him gyno. As I lay dying. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
There's certain things I just would never ever mess with. Like I consider fucking around with your hormones is the same as fucking around with like strong opiates or something. It's just not in a million years.
I'd rather do opiates than just take testosterone.
You've got to be out of your mind to.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like
at least
it can't be worth it. It can't be.
At least when you stop taking opiates, you get stronger and start to look better. If you stop, that's one of the psychological problems. If you stop taking testosterone, your body's got you've got so used to seeing yourself as this huge, incredibly strong guy in the mirror like your muscles deflate within a month and you go to being half as strong as you were. That's just incentive for loads of people to get straight back on it.
Who are the men that pick for scraps amongst the ruins at the end of history? You should know, because you encounter them every day. Between the towering buildings of a fallen empire, we find the Fellaheen, the historyless men, who know nothing of the turning of the cosmic wheel and find themselves outside of civilization itself. Cut loose from the great chain of being, they represent the loam into which our dying culture will return. That is, unless we choose to take up the burden once again. This Fellaheen condition is the subject we explore in issue 4 of Islander magazine, on sale while stocks last and available worldwide at shop.lotusseaters.com.